is up, everybody? We are back over here on Believe for another Detroit Lions episode, of course, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We have two topics that we're going to be diving into today, man. I wanted to change it up to begin this week as we get ready for this Dallas Cowboys game, and this week I wanted to give out some rookie grades so far through the first quarter of the season for the Lions, kind of like a quarter of the season with our bye week, to the rookies' performances so far. Now, unfortunately, there's really only two to look at, so that'll make this shorter segment than if I had to go through every single rookie, because we're not really going to be talking about special teams today. We could, of course, revisit this if other guys get more snaps this season. I'm sure that'll happen at some point. And we could also do this with free agents as well. If you guys want something like that, let me know. But I wanted to talk about the rookies today, grade their performances so far, but also where I see them trending, because I think that's really important. We're talking about rookies. It's about growth. It's not about what's their first 4 games as an NFL player. So it's where is this going? I think that's the key to all of this. Second thing I want to do is talk about a potential trade target for the Lions. The buzz for trade deadline is going to start picking up, and I plan on revisiting this, especially as we get closer to the trade deadline, with more players, maybe a full list, maybe just another player that stands out to me when looking through all these guys. But there's a player that did stand out to me. I think it's an interesting option for the Lions. I went through a lot of guys over the last couple of days, and not a lot of guys really caught my eye. I mean, there were certain things, so I'm like, okay, maybe there's a possibility because of this, even some free agents out there, but one that really intrigued me, we're going to talk about today. So those are the two things we're going to dive into, so let's dive into it. The first thing that we're going to start with is giving out some rookie grades through the first 4 weeks of the season for these Lions draft picks. And the two players that we're going to be talking about are going to be Terrion Arnold and Makai Wingo, because outside of those two guys, the other guys really haven't played outside of special team snaps. Now, Vaki's played 8 offensive snaps, but watching his snaps back today, there's really nothing I can point out there. I mean, he's played basically as a lead fullback, a couple run blocking plays, a couple pass protection spots. The one time he got aligned at receiver and ran a curl route, we didn't throw it to him. I thought he was open, but that's pretty much all Sione Vaki's done offensively. And then he's played a lot on special teams, and for what I've seen, he's performed pretty well there, but I didn't want to make this just about special teams. And then also Enes Rakestraw, who's played a few snaps just subbing in when injuries popped up, but outside of that, hasn't really played either, plus he had the injury. He's only had, I think, 3 defensive snaps. Giovanni Manu has been a healthy scratch, and then Christian Mahogany, of course, hasn't performed either. So the only two guys who really have to look at are Terrion Arnold and Makai Wingo. So we're going to give out some grades on those players to this point, but really focus on where I think things are trending with these guys because they're rookies and because it's about the growth for these players throughout the rest of the season. And then we'll get into this potential trade target for the Lions. So let's start off first with Terrion Arnold, the Lions' first-round pick. They traded up to get him. I was fired up. I had him as my #1 cornerback in this year's class. So you guys know I was going crazy when we selected this guy. I did a video from the car when we selected this guy, man. I was so excited. And Terrion Arnold has had defensive flags that have popped up, which have not looked great. Statistically speaking, he's been okay. 16 receptions on 25 targets, 178 yards, allowing a 98.4 pass rating, which isn't terrible. 2 pass breakups, a touchdown, no interceptions. That's a stat line according to Pro Football Focus. Expectations are important. It's to put into context what the expectations were. Being a first-round pick, there's, of course, higher expectations. He's also basically our #2 cornerback. But there's also the flip side, which is he wasn't the most polished cornerback coming out. We already knew that, right? For Rakestraw, I had him graded and higher in certain areas, like different coverage types, than I did Terrion Arnold. I think really across the board, outside of the critical factors, right? It was the critical factors that Terrion Arnold knocked out of the park, from play speed to ball skills, reactive athleticism. Like, he knocked those out of the park. He had all of the traits, and he was good to me in a lot of the coverage areas, but I had Rakestraw with higher grades there with just some lower critical factor grades. So understanding a little bit unpolished coming out, 21 years old, was coming off a breakout season with Alabama, and statistically, again, he's been okay so far with the defensive flags. But as I pointed out in our last video against Seattle, I felt like that was arguably his best game. Maybe you could make a case Arizona was, but I put on the thumbnail that Terrion Arnold, to me, is trending up right now. Now, again, the defensive flags, not fantastic, but I'm seeing areas where things are looking better for Arnold. I'm seeing things improve, and what I've seen so far, going back today, rewatching every time that he was targeted, and then, of course, what we've done throughout the season, he's been a good run defender. He's been a good tackler. He's been efficient. He has really done a good job of not allowing leakage on his tackles. Like, when he gets contact, the guy's going down. Now, I thought early in the season, there were some inconsistencies when he was ran towards just being in a position to make the play, but as the season's gone on, I think those have kind of gone away. But on top of that, he's consistently been a really good tackler this season when he's gotten his hands on a ball carrier. Now, in coverage we've seen some good right from the jump. He's obviously extremely springy at the catch point, and that's, again, one one of those critical factors that you knew he had was he has big-time ball skills. He can take the football away, even though he hasn't yet, only a couple pass breakups. But he's dangerous when the ball is thrown in his area, and he has that ability to just make it difficult for a receiver to make plays on the ball because he's flying around at the catch point. I think he's shown to be really good in trail coverage so far this season when he gets caught behind on routes and he has to recover, try to get back into the play and make an impact at the catch point. I think he's shown to be good in those spots this season. I think he came out a little bit inconsistent as, in press cornerback situations, just being a bit impatient. He was seemingly willing to retreat pretty quickly in some of those spots. So we saw guys like Mike Evans hit him on the quick slant route. He was willing to give him some space. I thought it got him into trouble at times of some of the underneath routes, especially when he was just playing head up with the receiver one-on-one out on an island. A little bit different when it was like a slot receiver and he's chasing a crossing route, but he would be willing to give him a little bit of space. He'd kind of pedal. He wasn't maybe just trusting his footwork and the quick feet that he does have to kind of just stay in phase. And I think as the season's rolled along, he's been much better at that. He's been more patient at the line of scrimmage, and he's not just giving up free releases to receivers as much.
And this is where I like some of the growth. Pure playing a pedal technique, he still is using single steps. He's not galloping back. He's not hopping on the play. He's trusting his footwork. He's staying patient. And like we saw in the Seattle game, he was staying square to the receiver, square to the line of scrimmage. He wasn't swinging the gate and just kind of skipping into spots, which allows too much airspace against receivers with so nuanced release packages. Wait till Justin Jefferson plays that guy. You have to be so disciplined, trust your feet.
I also think it's very clear to this point, more inconsistent has been the off coverage assignments. It's been more of the zone coverage, but kind of at half turn looks where he's given up too much space over top, or he's played a little bit too aggressively over top. Wide receiver body language has gotten him into trouble so far this season. Has been able to push him vertically. We saw Marvin Harrison Jr. on the one play kind of look back for the football and the little like double move that he set up, break back for the ball. Terrion gets pushed over top.
And this is the kind of look that a nuanced receiver in the NFL is going to give you. And you can see it here from Marvin. When he gets out of that double move and he looks back for the ball, Terrion thinks he's going vertical, so he starts to speed up to try to stay over top on this play. He overreacts instead of just sticking in and reading the core of the receiver and trusting his feet to just mirror it. As I showed into the Seattle game, he has done much better at the top of the route, maintaining his body control and shifting his weight back towards the receiver and not falling over top. And that's allowed him to gain control of routes by trusting his pacing and reading through the core and not getting connected with all the eye movement and the head bob.
Cooper Kupp used some of that nuance as a veteran receiver as well to push him vertically. Mike Evans, there was three really similar kind of plays that were made. Two were very similar on Terrion Arnold, just pushing him vertically and then breaking back the deep out-breaking route, that kind of thing, where he's just too aggressive playing outside, or he's kind of giving too much space, dropping into that zone spots. We've also seen in-off coverage. We've seen the footwork. We've seen the weave ability. We've seen the ability to, out of speed out routes, do a nice job transitioning, not really giving up airspace, and also kind of mirroring his footwork with the receiver. That's one thing that I loved. I think my highest grade for Terrion was in his transition ability. That has showed up immediately for him. In zone coverage, we're seeing it underneath zone coverage, transition, open his hips, get downhill.
Like on a play like this, you could see the looseness in his hips to open up and flip around. But we're also seeing in zone coverage a lot of aggression. And I think, again, last week, him playing so fast, even on the passes that weren't thrown his way, the curl route that he dove on, that if it was thrown, he's probably taking it back for 6. The underneath route that he dives on, he reads through the number 2 receiver. Like that kind of thing from Terrion, you can definitely feel like he's playing very fast right now. And you're seeing it in zone especially to click, close, and just roll. And I think that's the thing that gives me a lot of optimism is he's not look like he's thinking a ton. He's just playing really fast. And since really the first game in zone coverage, he's played really fast in zone. There was a cover 3 shot over top that was, intercepted, but it was him that stayed on top of the cover 3 look and just playing fast, read and react in zone coverage.
Make a good tackle. We're seeing how explosive and dynamic he is in that spot. And then this last game against Seattle, I thought he was much better at the top of the route, not searching for contact. I thought early in the season, like LA, you saw it, he would search for contact. It was like, let me get some contact here at the top of the route. Not maybe because he was beat, but because he wanted to get contact. And as the season's going on, of course, he's got called for flags, some good, some whack, but he's gotten called for some flags. But I think the big thing that we saw at Seattle was there was a lot of reps in there where he wasn't searching for contact, that he was trusting his feet and playing and winning with his feet. And I think in the NFL, that's how you have to play with this corner. Like, especially if you're going to play man, you have to trust your feet. You have to win with your feet, because if you're not getting contact off the line, which is why I think he's looking much more comfortable there, because he can press, he can get physical off the line, but down the field, it can be much more of a different game, right? Once you're 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, it's way easier to get called for a flag, right? Now it's illegal contact at this point. So grabbing guys at that spot, that's difficult. And I think for him, he's kind of had to tell himself, like, hey, don't grab here. Trust my footwork here. Trust my lean. Trust my athleticism. And I think that's coming along. I actually think he's taking big steps there. And that's why I thought this last week was so impressive from him, where statistically, according to PFF, 3 receptions on 6 targets for 18 yards, allowing a 56.3 passer rating. The week before, a 51.4 passer rating. It was the one game against Tampa Bay where they had him for 3 targets. NFL only had him for 2. 3 targets, 3 receptions, a perfect passer rating allowed on 72 yards. So even if you look at the numbers, you can see that there's growth there. It's just been the defensive flags that have popped up, which have really kind of hurt everything there for him.
I do feel like you can see growth and you can see that he's working on certain aspects of his game. But also, I see a guy that just plays with decisiveness. He plays fast in zone, and that's how I know that he's decisive. But he also has that mental toughness, and those two things go together. And as a corner, you have to have mental toughness. Carlton Davis has shown that, but I think we've seen that from Terrion and his willingness to just stay aggressive. He doesn't ever feel like he's backing off. He's like, I don't know if I want to try to make a play because I just got called for a flag. You're getting the same Terrion play in and play out. Things need to clean up. But Terrion Arnold plays with excellent mental toughness, which is a key trait for a cornerback. And again, he has shown that he has that to this point.
Seen real improvements, trusting his feet, being a good tackler, of course, since he's jumped in. And the ball skills to me, while he doesn't have the interceptions yet, we're still seeing it. We're seeing the body control at the catch point. We're seeing the springiness in his game. And we're seeing the hand usage. I think he's playing with great timing when the wide receiver looks back for the football, closing ground on the receiver, then finding the football. Like, he's doing a great job in those areas. That's immediately transition. So for me, I think if you went by expectation, you have to keep in mind he was unpolished a little bit coming out. He's only 21 years old. So we knew that this was going to take some time with Terrion Arnold, but it was about what could this become. It could become special. And to me, while I think fairly, you probably can't give him a great grade through the first 4 games, though I think it's obviously gotten better. I want to give him a higher grade. I'm in like the B- range through the first 4 games because you could even go to C if you want to. I think that's fine too. Some people probably go lower on it, but I think the last 2 games have been a real step for him, and I thought last game was such a big step for him that I'm really excited about the future. So for me, I think he's trending towards like a B+ type of grade very quickly because of what he's shown over the last few weeks, and specifically last week. So for me, Terrion Arnold, I give him a B-. I think he's trending towards like a B+, and I think he's along really fast. I'm excited about Terrion. I love that he's getting these reps and he's kind of working it out on the field. Plus, he's had a gauntlet of receivers that he's faced so far. It's going to take time, but I think he's clearly showing improvement. Now, Makai Wingo on the other side, who is coming in another 21-year-old, but a guy that, weirdly enough, as young as he is, we expected, like, hey, he could bring some immediate impact to the table. Like, this was a guy that could play immediately. My question was when we picked him, he's undersized, doesn't have great length, he's 6'1", he's under 300 pounds. I don't know if the guy could play in the interior. Like, that's what he did at LSU when he was really good at it, but in the NFL, I don't know if this is going to work. He might have to play on the outside. He might have to play a 6 technique. He might have to play like a defensive end. And the Lions have said, no, forget that. The widest we're going to put him is like a 4-eye. All right, we're still going to inside shade him. We'll play him as like a DN inside of an offensive tackle. That's basically the widest we're going to put this guy, but we're not going to put him outside of tackles. And to his credit, he's made it work. I didn't think they would even try that. That's what they've just stuck with. They're like, this is what he did. This is what he did well. Let's just put him in that spot. And he's played a pretty big role because he's been rotational. He's been the backup. You know, we take out our starters in Aleem and we take out Reader. He comes in with Pecco a lot. Of course, Levi's playing defensive end, so he allows some flexibility there for Levi as well. And I think Makai Wingo, while there was expectation like he could come in and help us right away, he's still a 6th-round pick. So the fact that as pick 190 that he has helped us right away is incredibly impressive. He has 4 pressures so far in the season, slightly higher pass rush grade than run defense graded according to PFF. And when I look at Makai Wingo, who's played 74 snaps defensively, I think there's a lot of things to like. I thought last week, of course, his best week probably as a pass rusher against Seattle, but they had a banged up interior offensive line, so I guess that was kind of expected. But he's shown a lot of that athleticism immediately, right? He's shown a lot of that lateral agility, ability to work on zone run schemes. He plays with really nice vision, so he finds the football really well through the traffic. I think that's great. He's gotten down blocked a little bit, right? And I think at times we've seen that kind of show up where he's able to kind of get pressed down the line of scrimmage and he kind of can get walled off in some of those spots. But I love his vision towards the football. I love that back in college. As a pass rusher, he's shown some variety of ways that he can win. He's shown some early wins, push-pull wins, clearly has an ability to get an edge. He has a very good first step that's now translating to the NFL. You could see it. Very good off the line of scrimmage in that first step. He's effective there. That allows him to get an edge. It opens up his ability as a stunt rusher. He's been super effective in bringing the juice as a stunt rusher. Now, I don't think he's always transitioned incredibly well so far this season. Speed to power in those spots, being able to transition, just be a straight walk-back force player. I don't think that's shown up. I think it's been minimized a little bit. And again, some of that is you're in the NFL now. These dudes are massive. So I think that's kind of not been there as much, but where he does show some of the occasional bull rush wins and just running over an offensive lineman is one-on-one, handling single blocks, getting guys on an edge with his get off, and then transitioning speed into power in those spots and having some occasional beautiful wins there as a pass rusher. I like his hand usage in a lot of ways, the pass rusher so far. He's playing with tight hands. He's playing with a really nice job of kind of stringing moves together. He sets it up with his side steps well. He has little counters off it. He plays with really tight hands on contact. They're not wide and all over the place where he gets kind of just stunned and knocked out of the play. Contact balance, and the biggest thing for me has been playing single blocks against the run on the front side, has been the ability to kind of wall up, settle himself down, and handle single gaps. That's probably been one of the most consistent traits of his game so far. I think that adds a lot of value, like I said, because you can put him out there on sub packages, and usually when teams are looking at that front saying we can run it, he actually can help us a little bit. He hasn't been terrible against run. It's not like he's just getting moved off a spot. So his ability to handle some of those situations has been big. Skip step, side step that's developed. You see just different variety of pass rush moves, and that's why he's been immediately impactful for the Lions. I do think that one issue has been there's been some false movement movement within his game so far as a pass rusher. There's been some movement that's not necessary. It kind of slows down his pass rushing attempts, kind of slows down his ability to win, can kind of turn off pass rush attempts. It's also been some, to me, not only false movement, but just being a little bit out of control, getting upfield, maybe not using the right plan, the pass rush plan for the way the offensive lineman is setting, it feels like, where the plan isn't always maybe perfect. He also doesn't play with just a ton of natural slither either. As good as he is agility-wise and the way he can work over blocks opens up upside, but I think at times some of the plan hasn't been great, seeing how the offensive lineman is setting and then going against that. It's always limited a little bit just because of some of the lack of length that he brings as well. As his movement becomes more and more efficient, you can get that upside a lot faster. Now, what's the ceiling? It may not be as high as a guy like Terrion, okay, just because of some of the lack of measurables, but the fact that he's been able to step in already as a 6th-round pick, and you're like, hey, he's good in college. This guy's efficient. He's just undersized. He's been able to do that in the NFL is incredibly impressive. So, to me, I thought Wingo has been better to this point before I went back and watched every single defensive snap that he took this year. I don't think he's been as good as I initially thought in my head. I love how consistent he's seemingly been against the run. He doesn't feel like he's getting bullied. There's been some little things in there, but he doesn't feel like he's ever getting bullied against the run. And again, as a pass rusher, I think it's been above average. It hasn't been elite, but it's been above average, and he did well against a poor offensive line. So he's bringing immediate impact. To me, I think you have to give him a B so far. And if you want to go higher because he's a 6th-round pick, that's fine. I thought Wingo was standing out on the board when we drafted him, so I was pumped up we took him. So I have pretty high, I had maybe higher expectations because I really like the guy, but I'm going to give him a B so far. I think he's been good. I don't want to give him like an A because I feel like if you get like an A, it's like what James Houston did when he stepped in, where he had like 8 sacks. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, that's an A grade. I can't go there. Wingo hasn't done that. But my goodness, man, he's brought it to the table from day one. So I'm going to give him a B so far, which is higher than Terrion Arnold so far through 4 games. And I think Makai Wingo is just about being faster as a pass rusher. And again, just kind of learning the tricks of the NFL, kind of have success against every offensive lineman versus just some that aren't as good. But the consistency has been the biggest thing for me with Wingo. Week in, week out, you kind of know what you're getting, which is awesome from a young guy that's, again, 21 years old. So those are my rookie grades so far. The other ones I just say are incomplete. Now, on to this trade target for the Lions. Went through a lot of names. One honorable mention, I'd keep an eye on Michael Hoyt. Okay, I like him a lot from the LA Rams. He does a lot of coverage dropping, and I think without Derek Barnes, in the meantime, Michael Hoyt fits really well. Just personnel-wise, because of the way that he plays the run, because of his stoutness at the point of attack, and he's not a great pass rusher. That was the thing that kind of held me back from putting him on this and talking about him, because I don't know that he's great at anything, right? I didn't get there with anything. I don't love him as a pass rusher. He's just like, okay, he's like, you'll get some flash wins, but you're not going to get consistent movement. And then as a run defender, while I think he fits, like, hey, he can help us without having Barnes, because he plays off ball at times, because he plays over the slot so much, and because he's so natural in coverage dropping, I just couldn't put him on this spot. So I'm going to put him as an honorable mention. But after going through a ton of different guys, one guy, and Daniel Brunskill, I think is interesting too. I'm always about adding offensive linemen. I don't think the Lions will do it, but I think he's interesting. The guy that I want to talk about is Josh Uche. Now, I'm pretty sure we've talked about Uche before like a year ago, but I wanted to bring him back to the spotlight because to me, watching all these guys, like first it was Ojulari. I'm like, okay, I see something I can watch. I'm like, I don't want to put him on here. Josh Uche was the guy that was like, okay, this is interesting. And I'm like, let me go back. And I watched again. I watched more games. I'm like, you know what? I like this guy. This is the one guy that I'm like, this feels like something here. Like, I don't want to just add a guy to add a guy. I'm like, well, he might make a couple plays. Like, I want to add a guy that I like, and I like the upside. And he makes a ton of sense because he's 26, final year of his deal, because he got a 1-year deal. He got a prove-it deal with New England this season. New England just lost again. They're 1-4. 1 year, $3 million deal. Reportedly, he turned down like up to 2 years, $15+ million this offseason because he said I was destined to be a Patriot. They took a chance on me. Well, hey, maybe he's destined to be in Michigan. I understand he wanted to be a Patriot. Maybe he's destined to be in Michigan. To me, Josh Uche probably wouldn't take a ton. Now, reportedly, they turned down, trading him away last season, so I don't know that they would do this. But if they were looking for extra draft capital because, like, yo, we're 1-4, this is bad, and it's like, we only gave him the prove-it deal. He's going to be a free agent anyways. Let's be willing to move him. I think Josh Uche would probably take a day 3 pick. Could be very interesting at this point in time. And here's why. So the 6'3", 240-pound edge rusher out of New England, who has been really well known as a pass rusher, that so far this season, 12 pressures, that's really solid. 2 sacks on the season, 6 stops. He's got a 72.9 pass rush grade from Pro Football Focus, and up, I think going into last week, he was playing about 42% of their defensive snaps, so he wasn't like a consistent starter. The concern I had was, can he play the run? I was like, ooh, how is this going to look? Because the replacement that I need right now, I need a guy that can at least be sufficient against tight ends, and I think that he would be sufficient against tight ends. Now, he's not like your Levi or Pascal that's a pocket pusher, and he's not Marcus Davenport. That's not what he is. That's what you're looking for. You're not going to find it here. I think we have those guys. I don't think we're going to find it. I don't think that guy's just sitting out there. Close guy, I saw that build-wise like O'Shane Zimenez, and I'm like, I don't think they're going to trade for that guy. This is not that player. but he's sufficient against tight ends as a point of attack against the run. And as a pass rusher, he's got real upside in his game. Good contact balance as a pass rusher. His movement skills in coverage offer a lot more upside than what I expected because he doesn't do it as much as some of these other guys. When he's out there to rush the passer most of the time. But I think he carries better movement skills than some guys that even play in coverage. He might be a better mover than Michael Hoyt in coverage. And Hoyt plays a ton of coverage. He might have a better skill set to actually move around in coverage. He plays with nice core strength as a pass rusher. He's got chase down speed on the backside. You think about we're getting James Houston snaps. He's kind of built like James Houston, a little bit less bend, kind of built like James Houston, and Houston didn't do a ton last week versus Seattle. So again, I don't know if the Lions would do this, but if they wanted to, I think it'd be interesting. He's got a finishing burst when he's on blocks to then finish and make the tackle. He's got that closing burst within his game. He brings a lot of shake to the table, that he ties his hands and his feet well. That's probably his biggest thing, is he's much more of a kind of like finesse type of rusher where he plays with shake. I mean, Cincinnati, that right tackle was just, he had no answer for Josh Uche. He was just getting shook left to right. That lateral agility that he brings, but he also times it well. He doesn't look out of control. He's pretty smooth. He doesn't like he's playing super fast, but he brings so much shake and it's so sudden that he gets guys kind of off balance as a pass rusher. Definitely has a second gear that he can get to when you're talking about closing speed, when you're talking about dip and bend. He has plus knee bend around the edge to turn the corner and bend the edge. And again, that's valuable against some of the mobile quarterbacks as well. Things I don't love, I don't think he has a ton of pop as a speed to power type of pass rusher. That comes from getting guys off balance, kind of like what Houston does. He doesn't have a lot of pop though, like naturally. There's some reps where you just like will see him not move a tackle at all. That's just kind of what you're getting yourself into with this player. But his stop and start shake that he brings, the plus lateral ability to kind of turn the corner, work laterally against offensive tackles. The biggest thing for me against the run is, while he's not dominant, and I think against tackles you're going to have less consistency, I think against tight ends he'll be fine because he plays with good vision. He finds the ball pretty well, and I think he positions himself really well as well. Like, he gets in a really good spot to, like, I have to hold this gap, let me get here, that way I can stay in the play. I think he plays with good positioning. He's just not going to be excellent at always working over top of blocks because he doesn't kind of bring that pop into his game. I think I like his positioning and how he uses his hands pretty well in those spots.
This would be an example of him playing at his own pace. You can see he has definitely the flexion to turn the corner in the hips, but then the hand usage here to kind of swipe off, transition, and get around the edge.
And the vision that he plays with to set him up well, and then he has that closing burst, which will definitely show up much better against tight ends. Just not going to be as great against tackles. But when we saw a guy like Ben Niemann kind of playing that Derek Barnes role, I think what I've seen so far from Uche, he's better than Ben Niemann. He'd be better than Ben Niemann working one-on-one with tight ends. That being said, he wouldn't be elite there. That's not what he would be known for, but he's definitely a better pass rusher than Ben Niemann. And I think he's also a better pass rusher, even though I was like, I want to see more. Or Trevor Nowatzki. I like Trevor Nowatzki. I think we will see more, assuming a trade doesn't happen. But he's also, to me, a better pass rusher than Barnes. Now, he's different because Barnes is still kind of a pocket collapser, but he's a better pass rusher than Barnes as well. I think Josh Uche is just interesting. You wouldn't take a lot. The cost to acquire is like $1.4 million. No problem there. He's on a 1-year, $3 million deal, so he doesn't cost anything for the Lions. Probably takes a day 3 pick, and he's on the final year of his deal, so it's kind of a prove-it deal, which is what we had Davenport on already. I think that this is a player that's shown real flashes, and I think for what we have, unless you're looking for a Davenport replacement, this is not. If you're looking for a guy that gives you more juice with James Houston and Trevor and Barnes and Ben Niemann, you want some more juice, this is a better option, I think, arguably, than all of those guys. Plus, on top of that, I think he's good enough against tight ends where I don't feel like he's a liability. He seems fine to me as a run defender. He's just not going to be known for that, but he's definitely not a liability. So, and I thought Ben Niemann looked like a liability last week. So for me, Josh Uche is the guy that I'm circling. I'm keeping my eyes on him. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, though. Thank you, Prop, for watching, and I'm out.